Hello again, I'm T, and today I'm taking you through what will probably be one of my last baseline Ableton tutorials. So today I'm just going through the basics of how to create instrument and drum racks. So what I'm going to start with, I'm just going to take you through a couple of racks I've created, and then I'm going to show you a bit more detail of how to actually create them. And hopefully that helps you to be able to create your own racks. So I'm going to start over here with this strings rack that I've created. So for this I used those sort of Lord of the Rings strings I created earlier in my collision tutorial, and I've been mucking around with them and I've added some resonators and stuff like that, and so it now sounds like I've been going for a bit more of a dramatic effect and some layered effects, so I've added a wobble bass as well. Now for this one, what I've done for this sort of macros is I've added the noise filter, because if I play around with that, I feel like that gives some cool possibilities for when you're playing around with this rack to be able to change some stuff. I've also changed them in harmonics as well. Because for this instrument I wanted it to kind of be as versatile as possible and can be changed around. The hit, that one's not as noticeable. I hear it more in certain situations, but right now it's not quite as noticeable, but it was, yeah. And for tuning, I thought it might be cool to have some potentials there. I've also limited the amount some of these things can go up, because that tune really doesn't need to go much more than plus 15 for this. And I did that by using this mapping tool up here. And when you use this mapping tool, it's another way to map parameters to your macros, but it's also a way that you can edit the parameters. So what I've done is I've lowered it, so I set my bottom tuning to 31, because that's what I actually tuned it down for in the instrument to make that sound. So I wanted to always be able to find that preset. And I went up to plus 15 because any much more than that was kind of just really loud and annoying, so I thought I set a limit there for that. I also cut down the inharmonics to 50%. I didn't want to go much higher than that. Just little things like that. It's just really cool to be able to fully customize what sort of stuff you can change in that sort of regard. So if you want to do that, that's that little map button here above your macros. The next one I'm going to show you is some bells I've created over here. I really like this bell sound. I just kind of whacked it up on collision just as I was making this. So I'll show you what that sounds like now. So there's a couple of little things going on with this one over here. So if I move over, I'm just going to double click that and hide that. No, that's right, that hides the whole chain. Okay, so I'm just going to move over here. So in my collision, just playing around with some basic stuff, and I've added some ambience as well. So again, it's just creating a pretty basic instrument, but for this one I have also added an I always forget how to pronounce that word, it terrifies me. But what it does is when you play a chord, it kind of splits the chord up into separate notes, which is really useful for the sort of patterns that I wanted to play with this. I thought it'd be great just to be able to automate it rather than have to type it all in every time that I wanted to play that sort of pattern. So for my macros for this, it's pretty simple. I chose mallet stiffness, which gives you some really cool things that you can change around with that. Again, 85% I set as a limit because that's the sort of preset that I set for this instrument. My favourite thing about this one is the inharmonics, because you can make it sound a bit like a bird and it makes me really happy in weird ways if you move it around. So I'm going to work on automating that in the future so I can actually just kind of create that sort of like that tweety sort of sound there. Same with tune. The tune was a really also fun thing that worked with this. So a lot of these ones I'm going to want to automate in the future, but it's a pretty basic sort of instrument rack using some different sort of stuff. That's the basics of my instrument racks, and over here I'm just going to create a basic one now so you can actually kind of see the process of how to create an instrument rack. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just playing around with a basic glockenspiel that already was in Collision. I really like that sort of instrument pack, just wanted something simple just to improve. So I'll probably stick with the preset of this. Let's get raise the volume a little bit just so it's more noticeable. I really like that, it sounds kind of really nice. So to turn an instrument into a rack, you right click and choose group, or you can command G, depending on what your workflow is, and that will turn it into a rack. So the one thing I want to do first over here is I want to set some macros. So I'm going to click on this little button here that looks like a little egg timer, or timer in general, and then my little macros come up here that I can customize. So what I might play around with is, let's go mallet stiffness, because that's always a nice good one for this sort of bell instrument. So what I'm going to do is because that's got the noise that's not overly noticeable. Let's turn the noise off for a bit. It doesn't sound that great. Okay, so I'm going to delete that macro by right-clicking and removing the mapping, and instead, up the stiffness again, I'm going to choose the noise volume because I think that might add some different sort of effects there. Again, that's not having the sort of tone or difference that I would like to have, but you get the basic principle of the sort of how to map a parameter to a macro. It's right click and then map to macro of your choice. And of course the same mapping procedure up here for certain controls of parameters as I went through before. Yeah, I'm going to go through the drum rack now. I'm sorry that wasn't kind of the best example. I probably should have played around with this instrument for a bit first before I decided that I was just going to mess around with it, but it's basically the same principle. It's just to show you how to actually get the instrument rack sort of menu up, rather than just being like, and look, now there's an instrument rack, and not really explaining how it got there or why. So I'm actually going to go over to my drum rack now. I've done a few different sort of things with this. So each of the drum sounds in this are samples that I recorded earlier at uni. This was mostly for a post-production sort of thing. I was playing around with trying to create some gore and horror sounds. But some of the stuff I've chosen here for sort of the kick drum sounds were actually footstep sounds, and a lot of it was snapping celery and carrots. So it's really interesting the way these sounds turned out, and if you edit them right, it really just sounds like sort of percussive sounds. So to get a drum rack, what you need to do is you go to your instruments and choose drum rack, and you can slide that onto a track just like you would any sort of other instrument, but it will come out as an empty drum rack. And from there you can put instruments on. So if I wanted to drag Collision, say, onto this C1, then it's there, and then you can set this sort of instrument, and any sort of audio effects you add here will only affect that single cell. So it will only affect this C cell here. I just have to, where am I sitting on this? Okay, I just need to move down a few octaves, so I'm sitting inside the drum thing. But that's how you would load a sound in there. So what I've done for each of these, I've loaded my sample in, that loads into sampler, and I've cropped it down to be short little sort of percussive sounds. So this is my kick drum here, if I switch over to the right drum rack. I have another kick sort of sound over here. That's a bit more attacky. I have some sounds I created with a carrot, which sound kind of cool. Another sort of sound like that. And I have some celery bells. It's really weird. I was messing around with some celery samples in Pro Tools and I came out with a sound that sound like bells. I don't know how that happened, but I'm really kind of happy with that sound and I like playing around with it. So what I've done over here is, so now I have my sound, and then I have audio effects on here. So on this kick drum I have a compressor and an EQ on it just to make it a bit tighter and more sort of, yeah, kick drummy. The other thing you can do in drum racks is sends and returns. So you can have an internal send to a reverb that you want to apply to just your drum rack, or you can use I/O and you can link to one of your mix window sort of reverbs and delays. So I've done a little bit of that, but I'll take you through the process. So what you want to do to get all this stuff up is this S, R, and I/O button over here on the left of your drum rack, left bottom corner of your drum rack. So I'm going to turn sends on, and so what that does in my chain section here is it brings up send levels. So I have two sends operating at the moment. This first one's my internal ping pong delay, and send B is the mix window reverb. So I can show you that. So I'm also going to add the returns in so you can actually see what's sending where. So you've got a ping pong delay and the return chain, which leads to the reverb. I'm just going to hide those for now. So if you listen to these boot sounds here, wrong ones. You can hear that it's ping-ponging either side through my speakers. And same with these carrot beats, I set it through a ping-pong delay as well, so it jumps back and forth. It's not overly noticeable just because of my speaker setup, but yeah. And for this celery here, I sent it to the internal reverb by choosing I/O. Now you have to sort of map it, so I'm going to get my returns back up. And see how this is going to the rack output. This is added in the rack chain, so that's where you want it. When you add a new sort of chain, which you can do by right-clicking and saying create return chain, I'll create another one now just to show you. So this is return chain C. And at the moment, anything that gets sent here is just going to go to the rack output, and it's just going to increase in volume. So what you need to do is you need to map it to a certain location. I'll map this one to my mix window delay. It's just like the custom, the sort of preset delay that's always set up in Ableton. I haven't played around with that much at the moment for this. So I might send this one up into there and we'll have a look. Oh, that's right, you have to go down here and just set that to 0 so it's actually noticeable what's going on. Helps if you send the right one. I'm going to take that down and then I'm going to send that up there, send C. But yeah, before you could hear the sort of delay coming up again. It's not too noticeable just because of my speaker system, so I'm a bit sorry about that, but again, basic principle's the same. I'm just going to get rid of that for now because I don't like it there. But yeah, it's using this sort of drop-down menu here to choose where you want to route your I/O. And it will return, and yeah. So to finish up, I'm just going to show you, I was just mucking around. I've just got a kick drum pattern and some of that bell sort of melody that I was working with, just to show you that these are actually applicable to actual music. I'm sorry if that's not as detailed as how I've been in the past with my rack explanations, but I'm going to do another video in future where I'll actually go through creating a rack from the ground up and I'll show you through each of the processes, and yeah, hopefully that will be really good. So I'll just play that now. I'm not so great at the musical thing, but I was just trying to prove that they can work together and things like that. So I hope this helped. Yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.